valve amp, or as the Americans call them, tube amps, right, which I often use in the studio, and I do use in the studio, or there's something called solid state, which is the ones that most people use. And there's a bit of snobbery about tube amps. Tube amps, they have got something. The breakup, the distortion, isn't as synthetic sounding. It's also an instrument in itself, not this one, but a tube amp, because the harder you press, when you're digging down, the more it will distort. So there's this sort of relationship between the two. Trouble is, they're not very roadworthy, so they break down easier than a solid state. They're more expensive. The other problem with a lot of them is you have to turn them up to volume 5,000 watts before it starts to distort. Now, there are certain things on the market, there's one behind there Juju's got, where they've modded it, so even though it's a valve amp, you can get the distortion at low wattage. So you could still go down that route. Now, I'm not being snobby or anything like that, I've got one myself. This is a Roland, I don't work for them or anything like that. This is a Roland Cube, and to cut a long story short, is it a cube? No, it's microcube, yeah. A Roland microcube, in my opinion, it's only my opinion, get one. If you ain't got an amp, get one. They're pretty damn cheap. They've got all the effects built in. It's just a no-brainer. Honestly.
How much are they?
78 quid.
Yeah, 78, 79, maybe 100 works.
Same as that one, don't
And that's this one, but I've painted that, so they don't look like that. They look black. But I didn't like mine. In terms of aesthetics, they're hideous, I think. So I had to paint mine. But get one of them. The other thing a lot of people do is when they're starting out is, I'm going to get my, 4v12, massive Marshall stack. You don't need it. The crazy thing is, and you'll see a lot of. Oh, yeah, I don't know anything about them, but if you want to.
Yeah.
I think about 30 quid, something like that.
Oh, right.
Well, smoky.
I've got a smoky.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Oh, yeah. I've got a smoky, the ones built into a fag packet.
Yeah,
they're
it's
right.
the same.
It always helps if you put it into the input, I find. So this is another idea. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty death metal. That might be,
It's only one tone.
that might be your thing. Thank you for sharing that. But yeah, I mean, I've got the one I'll be playing tonight. If you're still conscious at 10:30 when I go on, it's just a big brother of that one. It's exactly the same, but it's a bit bigger, so you get a bit more bottom end. But honestly, I would.
Plug it into the guitar.
Oh, I always find that helps. Yeah.
Tip I picked up from an expert years ago. Pleasure.
So yeah, I definitely recommend one of those. I myself have gone down I'm going to get a big Fender Valve 600. Just, don't bother. In my opinion, get something like that. The other thing you'll see is people will go on there, they say, you can't have just a small little. I often on these guitar forums, and I often wonder how many gigs do these buggers actually play? Because they know if they did, they could get it mic'd up. It gets mic'd up to the PA. It doesn't matter how big the bloody thing is. It's stupid. You don't need to be. You could gig with that anyway. I don't, but you could. In Bob Log, when I played the 100 Club, did you know? Bob Log actually played the smaller one, the Vox version of that. I haven't brought it in with me. It's over there. The only thing with the Vox is, I hate to diss it because it's British, but the effects, it's a confusing pain to use, honestly. When I went up to Bob's, because he had the same amp, and he said, yeah, you can use it, but don't touch the trick. And I knew exactly what he meant. It's just a nightmare. Whereas this one, you just dial it in, and voila. So that's my recommendation to anyone who may not have an amp running that.
Have you tried any effects pedals?
Well, funny enough, one of the things I didn't like with the valve amp that I used to gig with was that I couldn't get it, as I've already mentioned, distorting enough without going overboard. So I had to start then getting effects pedals. And the other thing is a lot of them came without reverb. Oh dear, that's another effects pedal. Pretty soon I'm kind of like, you know, Rick Wakeman or something. I hated it. Now you might not mind it. I still only had about 2 or 3 effects pedals, but it got on my wicket. So I went out and got like C6 Steve's Cube, the big brother of that, Cube 30X. The other thing is, okay, if you're fussy, you could sit there in a room in a big leather armchair with 2 speakers and go, oh yes, that's only a solid state amp. When I play, people are pissed. It's Friday night, they've gone out, it's a dirty, sweaty, underground club, and they want to have a good, are there any kids present? Effing time anyway. They want to have a damn good time. And do you think they stand there going, you know, they don't, they just go, and they're having a good time. They don't give a shite if you're playing, they don't. So get yourself a solid state, in my view. Any other questions?
I wanted to ask about the strings.
Yeah.
It's better to put like a D or A or E or the thickness, or is it?
I am very ignorant. The guy to talk to about stuff like that is Chicken Bone John. I'm very ignorant about strings and anything like that. But what I will say is what I found is that the skinny string is quite crucial. Like, because my skinny string, if you look at it, is very fat. I think it's like a 24 or something like that, which most people would never even dream of having. But it snapped about 3 weeks ago. It snapped and it was a 22, and I put this on, which was a 24.
Which
and
string's that?
the skinny string, or what would be a skinny string. And even that, you wouldn't think, well, that's not going to make much difference, is it, from the 20? But it did. It lost a little bit. I should have changed it back, but I couldn't be asked. But the other thing about strings is just experiment with them. The best thing you can do is find a place that sells individual strings. Luckily in Devon, where I live, there's a little shop that sells individual strings, and I think she thinks I'm quite weird because I keep going in and buying.
Not mate.
Exmouth, mate.
Oh, Exmouth. I thought I knew what you meant.
No, well actually she's closed down, so I am looking for her. Any other questions?
Yeah, sorry, those are wound strings on there.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They got the windy bits around.
I think they are.
They're not.
I think they are. I'm not being funny. Some things that I'm just not very thingy about that. I just play it. I always think as well, the old bluesmen, I wonder whether the old bluesmen playing in, on the Mississippi Delta ever thought, I really need to get a 22 gauge, this 24 gauge, it just gets you and it sounds the dog's bother. So there's a balance to it does make a difference, but very often people disappear at their own bottoms, trying to work out what's going to be there. Just get on it and start playing it and sing what's in